If you are a football fan, or even watch television for that matter, then you have probably heard about the polarizing and controversial issue concerning Colin Kaepernick. But if you haven't, let me catch you up. During the 2016 season, Kaepernick gained nationwide attention when he began protesting by not standing for the singing of the national anthem. His actions were motivated by what he viewed as the oppression of people of color in our country. His exact quote was, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color." Kaepernick's controversial behavior induced a wide variety of responses, which included other athletes in the NFL and other sports leagues protesting the anthem in various ways. Following the season's end, he opted to drop out of his contract with the 49ers to become a free agent. His free agency status has also been the subject of discussion and controversy as well. The whole controversy has sparked opinions and arguments on social media, websites, and on television. Even this week, the President of the United States of America tweeted about it, causing a firestorm of epic proportion. Trump said, "You should stand for the national anthem, and if not, you're fired. Find something else to do." You can't turn on the TV without hearing about this controversy. Colin Kaepernick is not the first person who stood up for what he considered to be social injustice. Actually, on several occasions, entire countries have boycotted the Olympic Games to express their protest. Muhammad Ali was the heavyweight champion of the world in 1967. He was one of the most famous and recognizable athletes in the world. Back then, the United States was also deeply engulfed in the Vietnam War. Ali was drafted to join the fight, but he refused to enlist. Ali's stand was based on his beliefs as a Muslim and his opposition to the Vietnam War. He said, "Why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home and drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam, while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs and denied simple human rights? No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from home to help murder and burn another poor nation simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people the world over." In the mid-1990s, an NBA basketball player, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, refused to stand for the anthem because he was Muslim, and Rauf felt the flag stood for tyranny and oppression, and it was his decision to no longer stand for something he didn't believe in. He was suspended, and 20 years later, despite losing prime years of NBA stardom, enduring death threats, and having his home burned to the ground, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf still does not stand for the national anthem. In the wake of the September 11th terrorist attacks against America, the former Arizona State standout and Arizona Cardinals safety Pat Tillman quit his NFL career and enlisted in the U.S. Army. Tillman thought it was more important to fight for his country than to fight on the football field. Unfortunately, he died during the war in Afghanistan a few years later. The media has turned this into a patriotism versus freedom of speech. Just to name a few sources that are involved and spoke out about this issue are CNN, ESPN, NBC, and the NFL. You've probably seen some clips on TV or articles that chastise Kaepernick for his decision. One political commentator in particular chastises Colin for his decision to kneel during the national anthem. Her name is Tommy Lauren, and she is shown commenting about Colin Kaepernick on The Blaze. However, in her multiple segments, she attacks Kaepernick on a personal level. This type of media bias is called ad hominem, and it occurs when someone attacks someone else's personality and characteristics in order to demean their argument. Lauren calls Kaepernick a whiny, indulgent, attention-seeking crybaby, which is a direct attack on Kaepernick's character traits. Here is a clip of just a few things she said about Kaepernick.
Decided not to stand for the national anthem because, well, he will not stand to show pride in a flag or a country that oppresses black people. For him, it's bigger than football. He would be selfish to look the other way. After all, according to Kaepernick, there are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. So let me go ahead and eviscerate this mouth diarrhea for you sentence by sentence. Here we go. Colin, I support the First Amendment. I support your right to freedom of speech and expression. Go for it, bud. It's this country, the country that you have so much disdain for, that allows you the right to speak your mind. It protects your right to be a whiny, indulgent, attention-seeking crybaby. When will those in black communities take a step back and take some responsibility for the problems of black communities? Because it seems to me blaming white people for all of your problems might make you the racist. Your perceived oppression while making $19 million a year to throw a ball should show a little respect. And if you want to sit down, now's the time on the bench because you suck.
As you can clearly see, Lauren sides against Kaepernick and attacks him personally and on his football skills, which is blatant media bias. She uses a demeaning and rude tone while commenting on the issue, which also adds to her attacking Colin and her bias against Kaepernick. On the other hand, there are numerous media sources that side with Colin Kaepernick and his decision to protest about the oppression of black people and police brutality. One news media outlet in particular, called Slate, sided with Colin Kaepernick. You remember that video from earlier? Well, the author of this article had a few things to say about Tomi Lahren and her comments about Colin Kaepernick. The author says, Lahren is a one-woman basket of deplorables, a straight-up racist. Her crybaby mouth diarrhea evisceration included a plea for those in black communities to take a step back and take some responsibility for the problems in black communities. Now obviously, the author of this article doesn't like Tomi Lahren or her comments about Kaepernick, which shows his bias in this article. He's called Lahren names to demean her argument about what she said about Kaepernick, and the author of this article is trying to defend him by disrespecting Lahren and commenting about her personality. This is yet another ad hominem attack, but this time directed at Lahren, so the article definitely has some bias attached. One last article that takes Colin's side is written by Matt Kolsky of the San Francisco Examiner. He talks a lot about how Colin Kaepernick should be playing football and calls out some NFL teams for not picking him up because he was stood up for what he believed in, not because he is a bad quarterback. Kolsky says this is why the conversation has turned to the concept of a blackball, because there's no logical reason that Kaepernick remains unemployed. It becomes even more curious when you see how many players around the NFL have adopted some form of the anthem protest that Kaepernick famously pioneered last year. He also says that clearly NFL teams are not simply refusing to sign players who won't stand for the anthem. Equally clear, Kaepernick has more than enough ability to slide into an NFL depth chart. Anyone who has watched weeks 1 and 2 see that. Given that dozens of anthem protesters around the league are now more or less accepted and or ignored, it's hard to view the blackballing of Kaepernick as simply a response to his stance. What the NFL and its owners really hate is the image of a player standing out from the crowd and speaking his mind. Kolsky is defending Kaepernick by calling out other NFL owners and teams because they don't want to pick up Kaepernick just because he stood up for his beliefs. The author is using Kaepernick's quarterback stats and skills instead of commenting about the real issue and why Kaepernick did the right thing by kneeling down during the national anthem. Instead, the author is basically saying that, hey, Kaepernick is good at football, so what he did was right and he should not be punished for it. This is media bias because he is using Kaepernick's football skills as a defense to why he sat for the national anthem instead of actually commenting on the actual issue about freedom of speech and patriotism. Overall, this polarizing issue about kneeling for the national anthem has received a lot of media coverage over the past year, and the issue is returning now as many NFL teams kneel for the national anthem as Kaepernick did last year. In the past, athletes have stood up for what they believed to be social inequalities. Athletes like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Muhammad Ali, and Irish Olympians. Both sides of the media discussed and commented on Kaepernick's actions, either agreeing or disagreeing with them. Many media outlets use ad hominem, a bias where one attacks another's personality and character traits in order to further their argument. Blunt and insulting tones are also used in some videos and articles to try and promote their arguments. Ultimately, many media outlets incorporate some type of bias in either videos or articles. Whether it be abrupt tones or attacking someone's character traits, the media still does it today, and most times it's about major polarizing issues, like not standing up for the national anthem.